I've been a psychotherapist for over 40 years, and in all that time, I've never said anything quite like what I'm about to say. If you are staying in a marriage that doesn't fulfill or make you happy, and part of you wonders if that makes you feel weak or foolish or someone who just doesn't love herself enough, I want you to stop right there. Because that thought, that quiet nagging thought, may be costing you something far more important than your marriage. And after sitting with women just like you, I know exactly what that is. So, let's talk about that. So you're still in your marriage, you're not leaving, and you know something important has been missing for a long time. There's a particular kind of loneliness that comes with that when you're in a marriage that works kind of in its own way, but you haven't found a way to feel at peace with it. But here's what most people get completely wrong about this. They think the only two choices are to fix it or leave it. But I've learned there's a third way, and it has nothing to do with your marriage changing at all. I'm going to show you how to live in the marriage you've chosen without leaving yourself out of the life you're living. But before we go any further, I want to say two things directly to you. First, I'll be using the word husband today because most of the women I've worked with over the years have been in heterosexual marriages. But everything I'm saying applies to any partner in any relationship. And second, we're not talking about abusive marriages here, not emotional or physical abuse. If that is your situation, this video is not for you, and I urge you to seek the support you deserve. What we are talking about is a real marriage, one that began with more closeness, more romance perhaps, more of what you'd hoped for, and then life happened. Whether it be children, career, the busyness of building a life together, or simply a marriage where somewhere along the way, the two of you grew into different people. So I really want to say this directly to you. You are not weak for staying in a marriage that you're not fully happy in. I know that's not what the world tells you. The world tells you that a woman who truly loves herself would leave, that staying means you've settled, that you're not brave enough or strong enough or awake enough to choose differently. But they're wrong. Choosing to stay in your marriage is not a failure of self-love. And for many women, it's an expression of it. And here's why. Because you're not staying blindly. You're staying because you see things clearly. You see the life you've built, the family you've protected, the stability you've chosen to preserve. You're thinking about your financial security in your later years. You're thinking about your children, even if they're grown. And you're thinking about what it would cost, not just for you, but for everyone you love, if your world was rearranged. Does any of that sound familiar? If so, I'd love to know in the comments, because it makes complete sense that you would feel this way. But there's something underneath all of this that we haven't named yet. And once we do, well, you may see this situation in a completely different way. And that's the good news. And here it is. You are in extraordinarily good company. The women I've sat with in my therapy office have said these exact words to me. And there's one particular Southern lady that expressed herself very clearly to me. And I mimic her accent, not to make fun, but to show you just how adorable she was. And she sat down immediately, pointed her finger and said this, "Now, I've been told you're a good therapist, and I believe that, but I'm telling you right now, I do not want you to try and talk me out of my marriage, because I'm not going anywhere. So I don't want help with that. I want to know how to stay and still find a way to be happy. And I don't know how to do that yet." Well, alrighty then. I got it. What I loved was that she wasn't confused about her marriage or her husband at all. She knew exactly who he was. What she was confused about was how to stay fully alive inside a marriage that wasn't giving her everything she needed. So here is what I know to be true. The women who found their way forward, who found genuine joy and aliveness inside a marriage that wasn't everything they hoped for, didn't do the way you might expect, not even close. And that's exactly what I want to show you now. They didn't fix their husbands, and they didn't leave. Instead, they decided to stop waiting for their partner to become someone he was never going to be. And the first thing you have to do is to totally accept who he is and say to yourself, this is who he is. I know it. I've known it for a long time. And every time I expect something different from him, every time I hope he'll be more romantic or more expressive in the ways I need, I reopen that same wound and feel the same disappointment and resentment. And here's the change of thinking that has helped every woman I've worked with, if she practices it, and it's the change that can help you too. Accepting who he is doesn't mean your needs don't matter. It means you free yourself from the exhausting work of wanting him to be different. And you may have to grieve a little bit about that if you haven't already, because it means letting go. And don't think that just because you're choosing to stay means that you don't have a right to grieve, because you do. You can grieve something and still choose to stay. So now I'm wondering, have you ever given yourself permission to grieve that? Even quietly, even just to yourself? Because on the other side of that grief, and I've watched this happen more times than I can count, is something quite beautiful. And that's where we're going next. On the other side of grief is space. Space to ask, where else can love come from in my life? Because let's face it, even in the most beautiful marriage, one person is never meant to be the sole source of everything you need emotionally. So this is what's needed to change. Start thinking about expanding your life with all different kinds of love. Deep friendships, women you trust who see you, know you, and love you. Start thinking about anything that you might want to pursue. One woman went back to school. Another just joined a yoga group that she absolutely loves. And perhaps most importantly, and this is the one I don't want you to miss, think about you. When did you last include yourself in your own life? What do you want your life to look like? And when you've figured that out, act on it. Do the things that make you happy. And I just have to share this with you. Remember the woman who came into my office and made it very clear that she didn't want me to convince her to leave her marriage? Well, during her last session with me, she said this. You know, it's funny. Yesterday, I was ready to go out with a few of my girlfriends, and we were spending the whole day together shopping and going out to lunch. And as I was getting ready to go out the door, you'll never guess what happened. I said, what? She said, my husband actually looked at me and said something he hasn't said in months. He said, hey, where are you going? And he actually noticed me. And I looked back at him and I said, I'm having a life. And I smiled and went out the door. And Dr. Numbers, I felt like $1,000,000. Now, of course, this is only one woman's reaction, and not everyone will feel comfortable saying all that. But this is one example of what self-love looks like. It's including yourself, your desires, your joy, and the life you're living every single day. So I want to say this to you with love. You are a woman who has made a clear-eyed, conscious choice. And now you get to decide what kind of life you build inside that choice. A life where you feel what matters. A life filled with real joy, real connection, real love, coming from more places than you may have thought possible, including from yourself. You chose to stay in your marriage. Now choose to stay in your life. That's where you begin. And when you're ready for the next step, I think this next playlist was made for you. And always remember, there really is no one worth knowing more than you.